Good afternoon. Umbra here, willthismeans.com. What I want to talk to you today about is hand drill. I've got a horseweed stalk here and a cedar board. I'm going to flatten out this cedar board a little bit just to make a good purchase for my spindle. Hopefully one of these shavings will come off, particularly good size, which I'll use what I call a welcome mat or a coal catcher. That'll work great to catch my coal. So I need to find a place to make a divot. What I do is I place my spindle flush with the side of my board, roughly an inch down. I roll in about 1/3 of the diameter of the spindle, stand it straight up, and I just mark the spot by making a little dent. So I got my divot. I always tell my students, keep your friction fire equipment high and dry. The ground's always humid. So instead of laying this spindle down, I'm going to stick the non-working end in the ground. Now I'm going to take my knife and just basically take a little cone out where I made that divot. Very carefully, very sharp knife so I can cut slow and controlled. Pop out that little cone. The reason why I do that is now I can drill a burnt socket without my spindle walking around on me. It'll stay in that divot now. I've got my fireboard. I whittled my little divot. Don't whittle this divot too deep. The more wood you take out, the sooner you're going to drill through. So I'm going to take my spindle, start out with a thumb on the top, rotating my hands and pressing down the stalk to the bottom. Thumb, thumb. Doing again. You can see we're getting smoke. The reason why I say thumb thumb is people will get to the bottom, they want to get to the top really fast, they'll pop out, and there went 3/4 of the heat I just created in an instant. So if you get in your head, go thumb thumb, you're keeping that down pressure and less chance of popping out. So that's the conventional way, the beginner, amateur, and novice way to hand drill. Works just fine. So we've got a pretty good socket burn in. Now the last step, I need to whittle a notch. The notch is where the abraded wood falls. It collects. It gets up between 800 to 900 degrees and it will ignite into a burning ember. For a lot of people teach a lot of complicated ways of laying out a notch. But if you just think in your mind of a picture of that picture perfect slice of pizza, that's what you want to cut, with the point being at the very center of your socket. So I'll knock that out real quick. Putting the knife on, I'm going to facet this, which is holding my knife there, rolling to cut high, cut low, cut high, cut low, back and forth. So about got that done. Pretty clean notch. I'm going to set that back down. Got a nice chip of wood here. I'm going to set under the notch. That basically gives me a handle to put my coal where I want it when I make it. As I showed before, thumb thumb, you're rotating the spindle as you're pushing your hands down fast to create down pressure. As I said, that's the beginner, amateur, and novice way to do it. I'm going to use a different technique, an advanced technique, expert technique called the float. It's a way I can manipulate my hands to rotate the spindle, creating down pressure at the same time, but my hands don't move down, or they don't move down much. This lets me keep a continuous rotation and continuous heat generation without that break from having to go back up. So let's show you the float. Breathing as if I'm jogging. So the way you know you got a coal is not only do you have smoke coming from around the spindle, but you have a individual secondary column of smoke coming out of your pile of dust. Now that dust will fuse or weld itself to your board. I see people take the tip of their knife and rake it out, which works, but it can also yank the heat out of your coal and make your coal suffer. What I do is use vibration to dislodge it. That way I've not lost any heat or taken any heat out of my coal. It almost fell off my little chip of wood. But that is a burning ember of coal. You can see the red. I drop that down in any tinder bundle, blow it into flames, and I got fire the old way. Hand drill friction fire. Umbra, thank you for joining us today. WildersMeans.com.